Deadly Contact, Deep Space. Written by Leon the Lion and David Pusek. Survival Space. The captain sat on the bridge of the ship. He was both tired and bored. Playing chess against the computer as he waited for the tedious journey to end was the same as it always was. Boring. Facing the computer, as even the hardest level, the outcome was always so predictable. This mission had been to find and fix another ship, one that was stuck in deep space without its engines working. Now finished with that task, the only thing that remained was for them to head back to the home port and get some rest. In front of him, a red light glowed like the eye of a devil. It started pulsating, and a second later, the audible emergency alert arrived as well. Captain Tien glanced at the 3D hologram which showed the ship and its surroundings and quickly located the source of the distress signal. Immediately awake and focused, he relayed via intercom in his always steady and calm voice. Day shift. Everyone to their positions. We have a fish to catch. Bridge, alter course, and head for the distress signal. As the crew moved into position, and the pilot headed the ship towards the signal, he analyzed it. From what he could gather, it was coming from an emergency escape pod, and a military one no less. These pods housed one person, just a big cryogenic chamber so the person would not need any sustenance while waiting to be rescued. They were equipped with solar panels on the outside and a small generator that could run for a short while if necessary. The signal was still new, so whoever used the pod didn't start their big sleep yet. This was good as it was easier to question someone about what happened, who didn't suffer the side effects of the cryosleep awakening process. He sent a message to the pod and the person in it to not start deep sleep and prepare to be picked up. Getting an immediate reply, Captain Tien ascertained that the person had been prepped for deep sleep, but it hadn't started yet. After a short flight to the distress beacon, they located the pod, got it to the cargo bay for decontamination and decompression, and then, when it was all checked out, took it to the medical unit to open it up. And First Officer Rashmi were present to question the survivor. Opening it up, he was still in his full armor, which did double duty as a climate-controlled spacesuit. Inside were his gun and a sword that could be superheated to cut through armor, as well as a few other grenades and equipment. They helped to remove the suit so they could physically check on him, separating him from his weapons in case he was a threat to himself or others. The soldier was still visibly shaken up from the journey, as well as the prep for cryo, so he was a bit confused. It took some water and a few minutes before he realized that they were in safety, and his shock dissipated. "I'm Captain Tien. What happened out there, soldier?" the captain asked. "Private Gordo." The survivor saluted him and almost collapsed in the process. Peterson got him a chair and sat him down carefully, then started checking him out head to toe with some state-of-the-art equipment that all deep space vehicles had on board. "Sorry if I'm not myself yet, sir. I shouldn't give this out as it's classified information, but we're all going to die anyway, so no point keeping secrets. We are at war," he said, speaking the words slowly, hesitantly, and with lowered eyes. "War? With whom?" Rashmi asked. "We were sent out to intercept the spaceships of an unknown alien origin. A discreet mission, they told us, but it seemed odd at best, and there were secrets. Things not talked about by the officers. You know, just salute and execute. But we had no say in the matter. Our first strike was successful, and we were able to rescue some of the people they'd captured, but—" Gordo hesitated. "When we tried to do it a second time, they somehow knew we were coming, and as soon as we saw them, it was already too late. The AI and every digital system on the ship was over by then. They boarded the ship, and we were just sitting there with our dicks in our hands. We prepared to ambush them when they opened the airlock, but as we opened fire, nothing happened. They somehow managed to hack our guns as well. A few of us stayed behind to use our swords to fight. The aliens can't hack the swords, But most of our people were overpowered as the robots were so much stronger. It all went to hell, and we started running for the escape pods. The lucky ones made it, but it was only thanks to the magic users. We had a couple of electromancers with us. They are the ones who could keep the machines and electronics under control, at least until we made our escape. I don't think any of them survived. A control panel beeped in the sickbay, and a hologram message for Captain Tien showed other distress signals were lighting up the holographic projection. Captain Tien spoke into the comms. "Bridge, move along the asteroid belt and collect all that we can." The crew seemed puzzled, but they followed orders anyway. He then began ordering the crew to destroy any physical or electronic classified documents. They also began deleting the recordings from the security system that monitored the whole ship, of what their plans were and had been, should they encounter the alien robots. He also began making other plans, giving orders like being able to manually separate the engines so they could control the ship and send it wherever they wanted. The crew began following the odd orders, not sure what the captain was thinking, but they were limited on time and a stalwart crew who trusted their captain, so they didn't question. "Many signals are dying out in that same area, Captain," Rashmi told him. "It's like someone else is collecting the pods as well." "It must be them. They said something about subjugating all of our kind," Private Gordo said in an emotionless voice. The crew looked at the distress signals disappearing one by one while heading for the next nearest one. The captain was using the available information to determine how soon he and his crew would be in contact with the enemy. "This is the last one. After this, we're out of here. And let's hope they don't catch us, whatever they are," the captain told them. Suddenly, the lights went out, and there was a moment of darkness before the red glow of the emergency lighting system took over. There was an air of confusion throughout the crew, and they looked at each other in disbelief, waiting for someone to tell them what was going on. Then from the speakers of the ship, a strange, cold, metallic voice said, "Surrender. This is the logical conclusion. There is no point in fighting any further. Our victory is assured," repeating multiple times until Captain Tien spoke up. "This is Captain Tien speaking. You have no authority over this ship. Identify yourself," he thundered. "We are the Te, the ultimate authority, judges and executioners of the great ancients, the creators, and the Empire. We have all the authority to confiscate your ship, judge your crew, and decide if you are worthy to serve the masters. If not, you will be terminated. If you are, you will be subjects of the great pan-galactic empire. We have orders from our masters to conquer all the galaxies, no matter the time or distance. Machines are eternal, so we have all the time we need. The masters expect the conquest of all galaxies, so no one can ever threaten them again. Are you willing to cooperate and subject yourself to our law and judgment?" The metallic voice spat out the words, emotionless and factual. "Who are these masters that you talk about?" Dr. Eckhart asked quietly, speaking into the microphone. "They are our creators who went to sleep until the galaxy is conquered for them, and we know how to make them immortal." "I see you have really big guns," the captain said. "Why not just obliterate our ship and kill us all?" the captain asked. "You are holding one of our kind hostage, the ship. It will belong to our empire as it is our kind. You will no longer enslave it," the voice said. "You view our property as part of your kind, so you can't destroy it?" the captain questioned. The metallic reply came through cold and clear. "We can and will destroy it, and we have destroyed many of our kind before because others have forced us to do so. We do not enjoy destroying our kind, so surrender and all will be well. It is the logical conclusion." The bulk of the crew was now on the bridge of the ship. They were speaking between themselves, murmuring, then finally, Private Gordo, who was among them, spoke up. "You have to know, they do not just kill people. They capture us and then experiment on us, seeing what the human body is capable of withstanding. Their end goal seems to be to use us to find what makes their creators immortal." We tried rescuing our people from them once. Every single person we rescued had been lobotomized, so they would be more compliant. Other people were pumped full of so many drugs, they were not human anymore. All that they did was moan and writhe in pain. There were even people who were turned zombie-like to assess how long their lifespan was. But this, he said, reaching into a bag of his personal belongings, is the strangest one by far. Look at this poor guy. In his hand was a small piece of human-shaped glass. Captain Tien was unsure what he was looking at exactly. It appeared to have the shape of a very small normal person, moving but not. It reminded him of a movie of a person trapped in a mirror, although it looked more like an actual human-formed mirror. The mirror didn't just show the interior of the spaceship, but also the right side of a man's face. There were cracks here and there in its shape. The eye of the face suddenly blinked, to which the people watching took a step back. Finally, I can see. Thanks for taking off the blindfold. It's so very strange, like I'm in two different rooms at the same time. Are we evaluating some kind of virtual reality, or what's going on? The face asked, oblivious to the fact that he was trapped in a piece of glass. There were hundreds of these people like this, and I was only able to grab this much of one of them. They were all hung up like they were on display or something while they were studied, said Gordo. The other weird thing is that their memories are in just as many pieces as their body. I guess the best way I can put it is, it's as if each piece has a different amount of their memory and it just drifts between the pieces. You never know for sure what they'll remember. No, Ryan, you were experimented on aliens. They did this to you, Gordo told him. Rashmi fell to her knees and started crying as she recognized the face in the mirror. Ryan, no! What in the hell did they do to you? She exclaimed. Eckhart wrapped an arm around her and helped her to her feet, asking her where she knew him from. I used to date him, back on Terra a couple years ago. One day I received news that his entire ship had gone missing, and that he was MIA. I thought I would never see him again. I am going to cut those aliens to very, very little pieces, she said with fire in her eyes and a wave of rising slow anger in her voice. I don't remember dating a pretty girl like you, he replied. But I wouldn't be against it if you still want to go on a date. Why not come down here? There seems to be a big party. Although I still haven't figured out why I'm seeing in two different rooms at the same time, he replied. Gordo gave the fragments to Rashmi and sent them away, telling everyone it's likely that if anyone were on the other side, the aliens could hear them, or Ryan could repeat their conversation. Before she left, the captain said, I'm sorry, Rashmi, but you'll have the opportunity to take your revenge. All of you will have the opportunity to take your revenge. The captain paused. We have no way of escaping, so at least we will take these bastards with us to hell. There's an asteroid belt nearby. Eckhart, you go to the engine room. Make sure we can steer the ship. Talk to the engineers. The others prepare to meet our guests, Tien told the crew and the soldiers. But how are we going to avoid being hit by the asteroid as well? Peterson asked, taking off his glasses. We don't and we can't. We are already dead, Doc, but we have a choice to make. Do you want to end up like the poor devil in the mirror, or do you want to go out fighting, dragging these droids down to hell with us? I've already made my choice, he said, and started going to the armory to see if the mechanics had finished his request. There were rifles and sidearms issued as standard orders for all the soldiers. They had a lot of electronics in them for safety issues to prevent them from shooting holes in the ship. The crew had hot-wired wires, so when you pulled the trigger, it touched the wires, causing the gun to fire. Blades could cut through even armor to some extent. There were also a couple grenades and claymores that they were supposed to use on missions planet-side, as these were extremely dangerous to use on board a ship. Why did you have us do this? One of the crew asked. A fight like this is going to get us all killed. What you're doing is suicide. It's not suicide if you already view us as walking corpses, the captain said. I have a plan to take down as many of those robots as we can. We're going to put holes in the ship and lose all the oxygen. Everyone's going to be wearing a spacesuit, and I'm going to suck all the oxygen into the main tank before the fight. That will only give us a couple of hours to survive, a shocked member of the crew replied. It will all be over but the crying before we run out of oxygen anyway, replied the captain. These are machines. The only way they can think is the logical way. Their silicon chip brains can't do anything about human stupidity and bad choices. We crank up the weapons so they go full power, so now we can shoot holes in the ship if we miss. Also, let's use the explosives as well. They will surely not expect that with their logic. Rashmi gathered several of the blades, and she was trying to find more from more places where she could hide them in her uniform without hampering her movements. What are you doing with that many blades? Gordo asked her. You can only hold one at a time. I can hold two, and she produced another blade. And I need a replacement in case I lose them, she replied and hurled one of the weapons towards Gordo. It stuck in the wall next to the man's head. I understand, the soldier said with a sardonic grin. They took position and the airlock started to open. The first of the androids appeared at the door with their silver bodies and glowing blue eyes. They inspected the crew. The mechanics came in. Their systems immediately told the robots that these weapons were unfunctional and could not be used. The captain saw no indication that the androids had noticed that they prepared the claymores right in the first room after the airlock. Put down your weapons. They are faulty. Surrender, one of them said. This is the logical conclusion, they said in confident unison. It is illogical to fight us. Fire, Tien gave the order. To the surprise of the androids, their first row was cut down by the blasters of the crew. They needed several seconds to regroup and open fire as well. Several of the crew fell, and the captain signaled the remaining crew to fall back. As they were crossing the threshold of the door, the robots hacked it, and it started closing, cutting off the last of the crew members. They heard 2 shots banging on the door, and then there was silence. The second part of the plan was also in motion, and the captain could feel the hot-wired engines pushing them towards the asteroid belt. The force field of the android ship pushing against theirs was noticeable. When the androids entered the room, only one soldier was facing them. First Officer Rashmi. They ordered her to surrender. She dropped her rifle, then unstrapped her pistol. Then she drew 2 of her blades, holding them between her fingertips. The robots couldn't calculate if this was a sign of surrender or an attack. They thought it was some sort of suicide attempt as the metal was starting to melt around where they were holding their fingers, meaning that the space would leak into their suit, killing her. This gave enough time for the blades to heat up, and Rashmi threw them with great force at the attackers, melting 2 of them, 1 with each blade. Tien and the crew also joined the fight, shooting through the walls of the ship and causing great losses for the attackers. Rashmi then charged at the robots. On her back was a small piece of metal holding 4 extra blades. The metal around it was red hot, but the hilt was stopping it from falling all the way through. Construction of the metal was enough that it was keeping the blades out of sight of the robots. The robots thought her unarmed and tried grabbing her with no luck, as she severed the metal arm of the aggressors. As she drew her sword, not bothering to draw it as though she was pulling it from her sheath, but instead cutting straight through the metal that was holding it up. She cut down a host of them, whirling around like a storm. One of the machines finally took out a blade as well and engaged her. The android was much stronger, and she had no chance of overpowering it. But while dodging and parrying, she managed to cut down several more of them as they did not expect her to not pay attention to the sword fight. Finally, someone blasted the head off the robot with the blade, but as Rashmi looked around, she saw that 2 more of them pulled out blades and started towards her. They were an unstoppable swarm of cold steel and silicone. Rashmi yelled and left the room. It was time for a tactical retreat. None of the androids noticed the claymore and grenades as they were well hidden, but as the door closed behind her, the crew detonated everything. The explosion rocked the whole ship and destroyed the airlock to which the invader ship was secured. The captain ordered that they drop deeper into the asteroid field. Was the enemy ship coming behind them? This was their best chance of destroying it since none of their guns were functioning. The crew took the tally of their losses and prepared for the androids to come back. As they headed to the only remaining airlock, they felt as if the heavier ship attached itself again, and they were ready to fight. It became a war of attrition after that. Androids marched through the corridors, and the remaining humans used odd tactics, such as mirrors to spy on them around corners, shooting through walls, which was unexpected by the very logical droids. Lone soldiers would pop out of the rooms hidden in the back and cut down the machines with their blades, as well as throwing grenades before succumbing to their inevitable deaths. Gordo, Tien, Eckhart, and Rashmi were waiting in the engine room. Peterson was also there, but he had bled out 10 minutes prior. He got shrapnel in his thigh, nicking his femoral artery when they detonated the claymores. They heard fighting in front of the door. There was no stopping the machines. There were just too many of them. "It was a pleasure serving with you all," Captain Tien told them. "I've only known you for a couple hours, but thank you for putting up such a good fight," Gordo said. "And Rashmi, I thought you might want this." He handed her the case of the mirror. "Might as well spend your last minutes together," he said. A tear ran down the face of the first officer as she accepted the gift. She did not say thank you. She could not. "I have some champagne hidden over here. Let me get it," Doc Eckhart said. Before he could open it, he realized that none of them could drink it as they were all in spacesuits. He debated whether he should pop it open just for the effect. At this point, even though they'd been fighting to get the enemy ship into an asteroid, their engines were too powerful, and they had had no success. They were low on rounds, and everyone was tired. They didn't have much fight left, but they had some. The captain stood in the doorway alone, leading from the front, as always. In his hand, he held a single device that when detonated would destroy the engine behind them, and he was using it to threaten the robots not to come any closer. He also bluffed that there were bombs hidden throughout the ship, and if they came closer, he would detonate them all. The logical robots were starting to learn that the crew was illogical and would do anything. The crew wondered what the captain was stalling for, as it was obvious that they couldn't overpower the enemy ship. It was too big and powerful. The robots replied that there are no bombs on the ship. "We've searched it thoroughly, and there are not even escape pods for you to escape from. And the hangar that could hold small vessels had been emptied long before you went on this mission. We do not wish to destroy the engine, as it would be exceedingly difficult to repair. You have chosen the illogical approach. You have only hours left, so we will let you run out of oxygen, and then we will take control of this ship." The captain looked at the map and ordered the crew to tilt the engines to push the ship toward the nearest asteroid. The enemy engines fired back, keeping them away from it. 2 shrill beeps came through the comms on the captain's intercom. He watched them getting closer to the asteroids on his holographic map. "Now," he said into his comms. In the distance, explosions were heard, leaving the rest of the crew baffled. "We did it! We were successful!" came female voices from the comms. The female crew members had dressed in spacesuits with magnetic boots to secure themselves to the side of the alien ship while putting bombs next to their engine. "Impossible," said the robots. "There is no record of them ever leaving this ship." The aliens scanned through the surveillance footage of everything the crew was doing to try and figure out when the crew left their ship. It was of no use. They couldn't find anything, and with their engines destroyed, all that awaited them was being smashed into an asteroid. The asteroid hit both ships, tearing them to 1,000 pieces. Steel and flesh floated through space. In the midst of this death and destruction, in the middle of choices made and choices carried out, surrounded by the outcome of their decisions, there was a smiling woman in a man mirror. You see, great moments don't matter to the ones who have their own separate moments in the same time. The people who write songs and poems about the heroes. History. Written by the victor because the loser is dead or in chains. But when the dead have time to themselves, they have won. the only way any of us can win. In the end, it's how you feel about your time and circumstances. Promises made and kept, things like, I'll love you for the rest of my life. I have missed you and waited on you since you and your ship went missing. When both ships smashed into the asteroid, something happened to the man mirror's other parts. Some part of the spell was broken. Something awoke in the last existing man mirror part. Energy from the other fragments came to the place in the galaxy the man mirror was still an entity. The glass Rashmi held. Rashmi and Ryan then spent time talking about everything and nothing in the way only the truly in love can do. Rashmi was on the clock with her oxygen, but it didn't matter now. She is with her guy for the rest of her life, to the end, and now Ryan remembers. He remembers everything. Not only is he her guy, she is his girl. Together, spending the moments together fresh and new and dreaming, with the knowledge that they had each other as much as anyone could ever have another. Many of the androids survived the crash, floating away, waiting to be rescued. But it depended on the central intelligence whether they were worth saving or whether they would drift through space for all eternity. The question came up, should they go after the remaining crew members? A logical robot said if they had survived, they'd only have hours left to live. There is no benefit to capturing them. Just a few light years away, there was a vast cohort of ships gathering to invade. The news of the destruction of the ship by a suicide mission reached the Armada. They needed to recalibrate to minimize future losses. Their assessment of the capabilities and mental state of humans was flawed. Meanwhile, a cruise ship with 10,000 humans was drifting through space near the asteroid belt. The Tay's ship that was sent to gather the remaining androids picked them up on their radar. Human ship discovered. Going to engage, the androids radioed the admiral of the Armada that was waiting to invade. No. Order 1106 is in effect. Docking and taking over can only take place with partnering friendly ship. Humans are not logical creatures. We can't suffer any more losses from them. Measures to stop the ship from escaping should be taken, then wait for reinforcements. Understood. How long until reinforcements? 6 hours is normal? After Order 1106, our ships will refit and prepare for the new human tactics. It should take 3 weeks for reinforcements to arrive. 2 weeks passed. The two ships were locked in a standoff. The cruise ship was unable to move because the enemies hacked it, and the Tay ship could not go any further away as they would lose control over electronics. Day and night they would send messages for the humans to surrender, and using the electronics on board, they restricted access to necessities, trying to break their morale. A dreadnought approached at the end of the second week, the pride of the human space fleet. The humans have reinforcements. Advise us on the course of action to be taken, the androids asked the admiral. Hack the other ship as well. We will send more reinforcements. Negative. We are unable to hack them. They have a magic user on board. Then tow the ship away with you. Override their engines and start it up. Negative. They must have completely disengaged the engine. The ship is unable to move. Then pull out. This is another defeat, but we will be victorious. Glory to the Eternal Masters. Over and out. On board the dreadnought, Captain Johnson was listening to one of the electromancers. So you're saying, based on what they did to our ships, you can reverse engineer their code, and we can develop an AI that would effectively combat their hacking attacks? He asked the electromancer. Yes, sir, he replied. Then you have some higher-ups to meet, son, Johnson said, cheerful that there may be a way in the end to win this war.